Welcome everyone. I am Willemijn Maas, your host for the Reclaim and Master Your Energy Online Summit. In this global online event, a total of 18 speakers will share their knowledge, wisdom, and experience to help you create easy to implement sustainable strategies for personal energy management. Instead of experiencing stress and burnout, it's fully possible to live in alignment with your true self, enhance your energy levels on a daily basis, live a life in balance with your feminine energy, and have more peace, success, health, and abundance. This summit will give you the tools to live with your own natural cycles, to thrive and create impact in the world the way you want. Today's speaker is Annemiek van Helsdingen. Annemiek is the founder of the Academy for Soul-Based Coaching. Within the Academy, she trains coaches who want big transformations for their clients in terms of results and rooted in their clients' soul knowing. Her background is in corporate change facilitation and executive coaching in international companies, and she stepped out of her corporate job 6 years ago to start the Academy. There are now soul-based coaches spread out over 17 countries all over the world. So welcome, Annemiek. I'm so happy to talk to you today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, Willemijn.
Yes, as always. And so I'd like to introduce your topic for today. It's called Replenish Yourself, What Our Souls Are Craving. And I'm so looking forward to this conversation. And I'm sure that at the end of this interview that the audience will walk away with some practical spiritual tools as well for wellness and thriving. So let's dive in. And my first question for you is, why is this topic of energy management so close to your heart?
Yes, I can just feel the tingle inside of me when you ask that question, Willemijn, because when I look at my personal life, especially the last 15 years, that topic has been right at the top of what was asking attention from me. So it has been a spiritual journey as well as a very physical journey with immune system stuff happening. That's been a really big invitation to look at what's happening and what does it mean? What does it take from me? What is it inviting me to do? And everything I do today is based on that, really.
Yeah, I love that. And that is this personal journey that brought you to what you do today. And so I know that you and I are not the only people who have energy issues and created something out of that, something magical. But let's start at the beginning. So why do so many women need energy management strategies in the first place?
Yeah, I think that's such an interesting topic to think about because you're right, you and me, but there's so many more people that I know, that you know, and that we come across that really struggle with these issues. So we're not alone, but why is this happening? And the way that I look at it is that we are being invited to look at something that we've been ignoring. And it's not just us personally. This is a cultural thing. This is a collective thing. This is that we have lost our alignment with our soul knowing. We, as a culture or as cultures, it's just not been very sexy or necessary. Actually, it's been really dangerous for a long time to really tap into what's most aligned for you and to live from that place. And we're now living in this age where we're being called upon to really look at that and bring that back to the surface because we need it. Well, I need it for sure in my daily life, but we all need that, and our world desperately needs that as well. So this thing about bringing back that soul alignment into our practical daily lives, but also the way that we make our livelihoods work, the way that we build our communities, that's the very, very big invitation that we are being handed, I think.
Yes, absolutely. And so when you said it was dangerous or maybe not really wanted to live in alignment, can you give an example of how we can experience this in daily life, where we find it dangerous or difficult to do?
Yes, well, we've as you know, like collectively, we've been kind of brainwashed, you could say, into thinking that life is here to be controlled, So in the sense that we can kind of look at life and go, right, so this is what I want. So this is the plan that we need to put together. These are the action steps, and then we can make it happen. But as soon as women, or for me personally, trying to get pregnant and not actually conceiving was the first really big wake-up call that that's actually not how life works. We kind of want to believe that's how life works, but we can definitely set intentions and take actions towards the things that we really desire and long for in our lives, but we can't force it to happen. And our whole world is living from this place of, yes, but we can make things happen. When you listen to our politicians or you look at the organizations and systems that we've built up in our societies, that's how we look at life. And it's just not true. So this is where we're setting ourselves up for a major sense of failure, but also we're just kind of pushing ourselves away all the time. That thing that we most need, we push that away because it doesn't fit the box of what's normal in our world. It doesn't fit the box of what we learned about in school. It doesn't fit the box of what's asked of us in our jobs, for example. So this thing about where it's hard to follow that soul knowing that you have, that deep sense of this is the right thing for me to do right now, we come across that a million times every day in very small ways and sometimes in very big ways. And then, when we look at where does that come from, that this is something that has evolved over the centuries. And something that really struck me when I first found out about it is that we now actually have scientific evidence that what happens in our environment, so physical environment, is actually handed down mother to daughter, generation to generation. And when you put that together with the fact that we've had witch hunts for 7 generations, there's been this massive reason to bring, to just kind of push back what you know in terms of your intuition, your instinct, to just not pay attention to that, because that was literally life-threatening for a very, very long time. And I think that what we're reclaiming is that connection. So opening up into, actually, we do have very powerful ways of knowing things for ourselves, for other people. We have very powerful healing capacities, whatever form or shape that might take. As a corporate change facilitation, I was also doing that. I wouldn't tell my clients, but hey, that thing that we all carry inside of us, it wants to be lived again. And I think this is like the massive wake-up call that we're kind of at the front end of. All of the women that are out there feeling this, like, my energy is draining me and I just don't know how to turn this around. This is, for many of them, is a very big chunk of what is missing and what wants to surface in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what you said there about how history is so ingrained in our DNA, literally, and that makes us it colors our decisions on a day-to-day basis. And it's so true what you just said there. And there was somebody else, another interview that this came up. It's what we see now in society is the feminine energy rising. And do you think that this awakening to our soul knowing is connected to that as well?
100%. This is the channel that knowing can rise through, because it's not something that happens outside of us. Yes, we see it reflected in other people too, and we see it come up in different ways, but that's because of the people that allow that to happen, right? So it is we're all part of this narrative, we're all part of this story, and we're all making it possible by being that channel. When this is kind of like tugging at your sleeve, it's kind of time to open up into it and go onto a journey which is both deeply scary. I know what it was like for me when I first started doing this, but also so incredibly fulfilling. And this is what that topic of replenishing ourselves, this is where we truly replenish. It's when we're directly rooted in our connection with source, whatever that means to you, right? There is no one way to do this. It's not dependent on some spiritual paradigm. If you call it universe, or if you call it God, or if you call it source or goddess, it doesn't matter. It's like when we reclaim that part of ourselves from our own knowing and not from something that somebody else is saying about it, then we're starting to be in that field where the feminine can rise through us and we can rise with it.
Yeah, so powerful. Absolutely. So we have talked about the feminine paradigm now for a little bit. So maybe you can touch upon the difference between the masculine paradigm and the feminine paradigm, and how we can embrace the feminine paradigm more.
Yeah, I think what I just touched on in terms of this idea about us being in control of life, that's very much from the masculine paradigm. It's where our ideas about what's reality are truth, and where we really like to bring structure and order to things, action plans, follow up, things like that. But it's kind of like when you want to remodel your house, there's always a project plan, right? Because there's different people involved, and it's like you need to kind of, some things need to happen first, then other things need to happen. You can't start by putting a roof on if you kind of, if you need to do some basic construction work first. So having that plan makes sense. It kind of helps the workflow. However, where it goes kind of wrong here, or where we lose track of reality, is when we think that the plan is reality, and we're kind of like throwing a fit because the plan is, we're off planning, right? We're getting delayed or whatever, because there's always going to be something. And this is where we can start to embrace the feminine too, because it's not about either or, it's about bringing the two together. It's like, okay, great, project plan, fabulous, gives direction and yeah, it gives meaning to the things that we're doing. But that is put in place to serve this vision that we have, this creative vision that we are first creating in our own systems, right, in our minds, in our bodies, that we connect to on a very different level. And this is where we start the feminine creation magic, by really investing in that vision and making it happen. And we can have the project plan to serve that vision, and then we just use that as guidelines, and we honor and embrace what comes up. So knowing that distractions are detours in the right directions, as Gabby Bernstein can say, it's like being curious and open into what life brings, because life wants to co-create with us, through us, and bringing our attention there. So not being frustrated when things don't go according to plan, but going into the, I wonder what opportunities this brings us, and what if this is actually serving us. So that's kind of leaning into that more feminine embrace as well, because that, when we look at the feminine paradigm, that is about chaos, because from chaos everything new is born, right? So it is about embracing chaos. It's about embracing emotions and the knowing that is in those emotions. It is also about leaning in to, like, leaning into the support that is around us, rather than trying to kind of rigidly kind of make everything work and kind of have our attention on what needs to happen there and the doing of stuff. When we embrace the feminine paradigm, we also learn to lean in. We learn to surrender. And well, we've talked about this before as well. That is an art in itself when we come from that, masculine paradigm in our societies. They're actually surrendering to what is, and embracing your longings for what you'd like to be at the same time.
Yes, so powerful. And I can so hear what you say. I'm coming from a background of project management. I was taught in a very action-oriented way how to create projects and how to monitor them, and being in action mode all the time. So I can totally feel what you're doing there with the forward motion of action and the leaning back of surrendering to what wants to come through. And yeah, I love that. And it's a journey in itself, definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So so we talked about embracing how the feminine paradigm and this sort of surrendering, receiving energy. So how do we do this in daily lives? Can you give us some examples, some practices we can do?
Sure, yes, for sure. I think the first one I would like to offer is the concept of holding space. Now, that's you hear about it more and more, um, and it's a very, very powerful portal for doing this. And you can do that for other people, but actually start with yourself first. And one of the ways to think about holding space is if you're like the wise grandmother. You know, the woman who's been through life, who's seen lots of things come and go, who knows that every person thrives in their own unique way. So if you can bring that energy to yourself and just take some time to witness what is happening in you, to really honor it. So this is the thing with the feminine, is that we stop pushing away what doesn't fit the box, right? Doesn't fit the plan. We start honoring and bringing everything in that actually is in the moment. So when we hold space, and we do a lot of work with holding space in the academy, so there's some great tools that I can also refer people to if you want to know more. But we really look at 6 principles when we hold space. And one of them is that you want to let go of outcome. So when you hold space for yourself, just even if it's for 5 minutes, just let go of what it needs to become, of where it needs to go, how you need to feel or end up thinking about yourself. Just let go of all of that for a moment. And, also let go of your judgments, which is really hard to do. But try looking through the eyes of this wise grandmother, looking with compassion. This is the experience of this moment. Allowing all the feelings that you're having, all the thoughts that you're having in that moment, just allow them so that you can be present with them. So don't go into them, don't follow them, don't go into the narrative that they're kind of presenting for you. Just notice that they're happening, right? And then you want to really stay present to that. So just being there, noticing, witnessing, it's almost like this really gentle, loving embrace for all of that stuff that's going on through your mind, through your body at that moment. And with that comes that you offer it really deep trust that this is okay, that it doesn't need to be any different from right now, even if it's uncomfortable, that this is the exact right place for you to be. And when you can do that, what you will start to notice is that the energy that moves in you, we call it Shakti, this creative life intelligence that helps you have these feelings, that triggers the thoughts in your system, like that whole thing, it starts to dance in a different way. It starts to shift from and off itself. Because we often think that, if I feel crappy for whatever reason, that I have to do something to change that. But actually, when you learn to allow it, it will change in and of itself. There is a meaning, there's a message in that feeling for you. If you can really feel that, embrace that, allow it to be, that feeling is going to subside. And it's going to bring clarity. And it's going to bring your next step. And it's going to probably be different from what you would have thought of if you'd taken that route. So that's a really practical thing that you can do. Set aside 5 minutes. If you're happy, you can do the same thing. You don't have to reserve it for when you're feeling crappy. But to really start to lean into, so what is here now? And start to learn about how our systems are created for change. Our body, mind, soul systems, we are changing every millisecond. The thing that keeps us kind of stuck in the places that we know so well is when we start to think about what we're feeling and creating a story about that in our minds, repeating that, and we repeat that, we trigger the feeling again, and we're kind of in this infinite loop of, oh, this is how it is, and it can't change. But once we stop hooking into that experience that we're having with our thoughts, then we can really start to notice what our nature is, how we can change from within, and how that is happening all the time if we can allow it to happen. So that's one really practical way that people can start to really lean in to this feminine. Oh, it's like an embrace. You can learn to lean into that embrace of life that is here for you all the time.
Yeah, beautiful. I can I can also see that how we are so used to working from like the plans we made or rational thoughts and the boxed in stories we have about how things are supposed to happen versus leaning in, surrendering to what comes from within, and how I can, when just thinking about this and talking with you about this, I can feel the space
Yes.
and sort of the energy flows in a way like a river. It flows way more easily than if you try to create things because you have thought about a plan that you have to just do and create a to-do list that you just have to cross every day. That feels so different to me.
Yes, I love that you're already feeling that spaciousness that opens up, and it's like, when I look at the academy and how that came to be, it started off with, yeah. Why I just share my story. What happened was that I got to be completely stuck in that corporate environment. It was, helped by my health because my immune system gives me some stuff to work with. But it got me to a stage where I could not fit the boxes anymore, even though I really, really wanted to. Like that was like my thing. Um, so learning to surrender to that took me a couple of years. Um, but then it became really clear that I couldn't do that anymore. And it got to a stage where I was just unable to walk up the stairs, right? I was physically really limited. But I also felt like there was something in me that really wanted to be in the world. I could not just kind of sit behind the windowsill and look at life go by. So there was this real deep longing in me for something to go out into the world. And what I started to notice was that if I stayed really, really close to my deepest knowing, that there were things that were presenting themselves, that were inviting me to do them, and that I could do them, that I could feel energy coming in to help me get these things done. Now, I would never have thought that it would end up here in 2019. If I would have been asked to make a plan back then and kind of make that plan and all the steps that needed to be taken to get here, I couldn't have thought of what it is now. But also, anything that I would have thought of would have probably paralyzed me in some way. It would have made me very determined to make that plan happen. And I would have put on my blinkers like I've done many times in the past and go, right, so to do, to do, to do, to do. If it doesn't work, push harder. If it still doesn't work, throw more at it. If it still doesn't work, see how else you can force it to happen, because this is the plan. This is what leads to the vision that's important to me. And when I look now at how this has happened, is that every time, it started with people asking me, so we want you to teach us what you've been doing. And I thought, but I don't want to do that anymore. So how would I want to do it in a way that feels aligned to me? Everything I know now, including the spiritual development path that I've been doing my whole life and trying to keep very separate from my corporate career. What would that look now, right? That was the first step. And then from there, it's kind of like, it kept on kind of unfolding. And then, sometimes I took a turn and it was like, oh no, 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 no. Let's not do that. And so it's all the time kind of being in that dance with, what is the longing in me? What is wanting to, what am I like really wanting to set my, get my teeth in? There's nothing wrong with determination as long as you make sure it doesn't backfire. That you keep on checking in with, does this still feel the right thing to do, or is it just, that action plan that my mind is run off with? If people listening are anything like you and me, it's like, great, it can start with this intuition, and then the mind takes over. It creates a plan, and we'll go make it happen. So finding your own way to check back in with, hang on, is this still aligned? Does it still feel right for me in this moment? Is this still what I want to do? And for me personally, that often includes, once I'm on a roll and I can keep going for a very long time, feeling very inspired and really being in there. But actually my body would have like been going, hello, hello, we need a rest, we want sleep, we, stop now, we want a day off. So learning to listen to that signal for me is a huge one. It's still something every day that I learn to pay attention to and pay better attention to and to pay even better attention to. So these are the ways that we can really learn to open up into that spaciousness. And when we open into that spaciousness and connect with that soul knowing that we have, then things can start to happen that are really aligned, that we feel so joyful about. And when we really feel that it's not up to us to do it by ourselves, it's not just me. I really do feel carried by the universe, by my community, by my husband. And in turn, I'm here to carry others because it all kind of nicely fits into each other.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And for me, it's also something I can recognize from my own journey. This transition from pushing, striving, achieving, action-oriented into unfolding and co-creating. And for me, the question that helps me a lot is to ask myself, does it bring me joy? And I heard you say, like, the joyful experiences are really important. Yeah. So do you have a sort of a question, like a filtering question or something else you use for yourself to sort of evaluate what you're doing and if this is the right direction?
Yeah, I think I have a couple. So one of the things, let me check in. What really helps me is to have this foundation of a daily connection practice. So something that I use to just check in with myself, so to hold space for myself, and to really feel into my intentions. And I love doing that at the beginning of every day, because as soon as I open my notebook with my to-dos, it's so easy to just kind of start doing them and kind of lose track of this. So first check in your days with, how am I? What's happening inside of me? What would I like to have happen today? And the what would I like to have happen question is not just about getting this done and this done and this done. No, it's about I'm feeling my mind, my body, my soul, all of it. And I only do that when I start to really feel space, hold space for myself, right? So that we are outside of that mental paradigm. And from that space, what would I like to have happen? That's a great question to ask yourself. Often, knowing that when you answer that question with something that seems unachievable or impossible, then that's an answer to really pay attention to. If the answer is, I want a day off today, and you go, but I can't because I should be doing this, this, and this, and I have these appointments or blah, 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 deadlines. Like, And when I would really like to have the day off, and I think I can't because of all of this, what would I really like to have happen? So to be in that inquiry. And what has really helped me is to take on this idea that everything I need is already here. So the space to clear my calendar, it's always possible. Always. If that's truly what is needed, or what I long for, then that's possible. If I'm longing for support, then that's already here too. But it takes me becoming aware of that need for support and then allowing myself that need as well. And then looking at, I wonder how it would work. So being in that questioning curiosity with a positive expectation that yes, it can happen. And up until the point that you see how, you can learn to live with a question. I wonder how I could clear my schedule today. Just stay with that. I wonder how I might be able to clear my schedule tomorrow, if I can't see today yet. Living in that question helps your system to start kind of stretching into possibility. I wonder.
Yeah. And I can see how this helps. And I can also hear some of the people who are watching this interview think, yeah, but that's not possible because, I have to just do this and this and this.
Yeah.
And the narrative in our mind and the way we are, yeah, you used the word brainwashed, but I think that's what it is.
It's a bit of a strong word, but yeah, I think it's
Yeah,
kind of true. Yeah.
it is what it is. And so how this is so strong,
Yeah.
the stories that we tell ourselves about how things are not possible and
Mm-hmm.
how we have to work, or how we are the only one who can make this work, or how we have to work really hard to be successful, because if we don't work hard and we don't take the action, nothing will happen and we will fail. These stories are so strong and so ingrained in us.
Yeah.
So do you have any advice for women who are listening and feeling like this is never going to change for them?
Yeah, I do. This is give yourself tons of grace, because this is a really strong programmed thing that we're all living. So you don't have to break it today. But if you can start to live in that question of, I wonder how, I wonder what might be possible. If I think it's not possible, I wonder what might. So even if it's not a day that you can clear your calendar, even if it's 30 minutes, like embrace that and enjoy it. And show yourself every time with little steps that there is much more that's possible than we think. And to kind of illustrate that, the concept of a pregnancy is a really, like that's a great metaphor for it. It's like when we feel the longing for a child, right? We know that there's certain things that we need to do to make that possible, right? Without any making love, it's going to be a little bit trickier unless we go to IVF procedures. Again, we need to do stuff to make that happen. But after that, it is the big surrender, right? So we do the things that we can. We make sure that our actions are aligned with that. So we stop contraception, for example. So we make sure that all our actions are aligned with what it is that we are longing for. And then we surrender and we give it a gestation period, right? And then the pregnancy comes full term, right? The child will develop into something. It will come into the world and we can welcome it. Right? But there is so much more that helps you create your, the life that you dream of, than is just within your capacity. Like we're all limited in our capacities and we're super powerful, but the super powerful bit comes when we learn to surrender to that bigger thing. Right? So that's maybe not, that might help you to understand why you would want to look at how you can loosen that narrative a little bit in your system. And look for the edges, look for the small pockets, look for the living in that I wonder question. Because I can promise you that some of the most powerful women out there who are making a big difference in the world, they understand this principle, right? And it's there for all of us. But it's, we're part of this collective movement of learning this truth again, right? If we would be able to go back to our, our mothers, our ancestors, they would live it for us. They would show us, right? So give yourself tons of grace and know that it's possible, and you're on the front lines of tapping into something that the world as we know it now hasn't seen in a very, very long time.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And there's so much wisdom in that. And it gave me like tons of things to integrate and think about and make more of this, of the space and holding space for myself as well. Beautiful. Thank you so much. So I know you have a great free gift for women who are looking for this more spiritual connection with themselves, and to how to tap into to their soul's knowing. Can you share about your free gift a little bit?
Yeah, so we're building on what we've talked about here about holding space for yourself and how to do that. Asking yourself that question of what would I like to have happen? And then adding some more questions to that to really help you find your roots into your deepest knowing in any moment. So you can use this practice, and it's a 10-minute practice. You can use that at the beginning of your day or when you're in a challenging situation or something comes up that you're not quite sure how you want to navigate that. So you can use that to really tap into your roots, into that deepest knowing, and start creating that space so that not just your mental narratives is the one like calling the shots, but you're opening up to the full spectrum of your wisdom. And I can promise you that the actions you take with that knowing are going to be different from the ones that you can think of right now. And that's a beautiful journey to start.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Annemiek. It was a lovely conversation. And I do hope that everybody checks out your free gift because it helped me also a lot. So yeah, I would encourage people to do so. Thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Thank you very much. And just love what you're putting on here in the summit. Thank you so much for everything that you do.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.